Hey, what's up guys? This is Jonathan again, just trying to help you out with another video tutorial. Alright, cool. So today we're going to be making a virtual machine. Actually, we're going to be looking at a virtual server that I already made. The reason we're not making one now is just simply for time constraints. So I just want to point out also that I'm not using a mouse right now. I'm actually kind of freelancing it with the little pad on my MacBook Pro. So yeah, does that make me kind of cool? Maybe a little bit. So let's go to VirtualBox first. VirtualBox is free and it's open source and it's awesome. You should download it. It's sort of like House Tyrell in Game of Thrones. Well, I already have 3 virtual machines installed. The first one's Backtrack, the second's pfSense, and the third is Windows Server 2012. The first one I want to take a look at is pfSense. And before I go any farther, I want to show you the settings on pfSense to get an idea what we're doing. Again, it has 2 network adapters. The first network adapter is a bridge adapter, and it's connected to the Wi-Fi, that Wi-Fi being my home Wi-Fi. And other than that, the rest of the virtual machines have no connection whatsoever to my home Wi-Fi, and you'll see that a little bit later. So you're probably wondering what connects pfSense to the other virtual machines. Well, that's the adapter 2, and that's the internal network. The internal network is connected to actually all 3 virtual machines, as you can see right here. Network setting, internal network, and Backtrack also is connected to the internal network. Cool. So again, pfSense, we're going to open that first, and again, I already have it installed, and you can see here we have 2 interfaces. We have the WAN interface and the LAN interface. The WAN interface usually is configured by DHCP, but I chose to configure it myself this time, and I gave it a static IP of 10.2.0.1. Really, the only reason I did that was to avoid confusion with my LAN IP, which also happens to be my gateway address in this case, which is 192.168.1.1. And you'll see how this comes back a little bit later and why it's necessary. Again, pfSense is open source firmware, and it is a network, I'd say it's a router / firewall, and it's pretty cool. So let's look at some of my other virtual machines. Let's take a look at my Windows Server 2012. You can see here that like I said, I'm already connected to the internet. I already did that before, but let's take a look at what I'm actually connected to. Let's click on this guy. And let's go to here, Network 2, Properties. Cool. So we can see here that my IP address, not my gateway, but my IP address is IPv4, I think, is 192.168.1.8. And that's sort of that is a subnet of my default gateway, which is the 192.168.1.1. And my preferred DNS server here, I'm using Google's open source open DNS server, which is 8.8.8.8. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. So I chose to use a static IP to connect to the Windows server, and I can explain that in a little bit. Just remember here though that this ends in a .8, not a .1. That's sort of what you want to get out of this. Let's exit this. Again, you could have checked this if you wanted to. You could have checked it from here with the IP config in the PowerShell. Okay, cool. So let's check out the internet. And again, pfSense, as we talked about before, is connected to all my virtual machines as well as my home network. But my Windows Server 2012 is only connected to pfSense and has no direct link with my home network. So let's go to my default gateway, and then here it says there's a problem with this website security certificate. Let's click Continue Anyway. And we know here, look, this is going to be pfSense's, this is its homepage. This is the graphical interface of this guy right here, which is kind of neat. And when you install pfSense, the default username is admin, and the default password is pfSense. We just log in. We can see that we're actually already connected to the internet. We already are connected to the WAN and the LAN. So if you were going to do this, from the beginning, you would have had to go to System and then Setup Wizard. But we already did that. For whatever reason, it says my network connection is limited right now. I don't think that's true. So I'm just going to open another tab quickly. And I'm going to go to, let's go to freechess.org. Waiting for freechess.org. Maybe something is not working properly with my connection right now. Okay, so we're back. I just had to fix a little network connection problem that I had. So let's go back to Internet Explorer just to confirm that we are, in fact, on the internet. Let's go to www.freechess.org. And as you can see, this comes up quickly. By the way, this is a great site if you enjoy playing chess. Okay, let's go over to our third virtual machine, which happens to be Backtrack 5. Okay, Backtrack 5 is also an open source operating system, actually. You can run it as itself, or you can dual boot it, or even run it like I'm doing through a virtual machine. Which first check was connected to? Let's go to wired network. As you can see, it's connected to the wired network, but if you recall from before, when we were looking at the settings in VirtualBox, that like Windows 2012 server, or Server 2012, this is connected to the internal network also. Let's check the properties though. As you can see here, I actually set up a static IP, but this time I chose a different subset of the gateway address, which in this case I had used 8.8 for the Windows server, but in this case I'm actually going to use .9. So that's fine. So let's exit out of here, and let's check another website. Let's go to ESPN. Oh, big story. Oh, excuse me. The Kindred Spurs. Yeah. It's kind of hard not to be a Spurs fan, right? But whatever. Pippen criticism of Rose was undeserved. Manziel can't wait to leave town. Yeah, I don't know if you guys read that before, but apparently Johnny Manziel's not so happy with A&M right now. Apparently, he is looking forward to leaving. But this is actually what kills me. Scottie Pippen. Oh, never mind. I thought Scottie Pippen was actually criticizing Derrick Rose. Scottie Pippen is, in my opinion, top 50 NBA player of all time. Great defender. Actually, there's a cool video on YouTube of him playing Michael Jordan. In Michael Jordan's first game back from after retiring in, what was it, 95, I think. So cool, let's exit that out though, that's not important. And let's bring up the reason that I actually installed Backtrack as a virtual machine. Let's go to Backtrack, let's go to Exploitation Tools, Social Engineering Tools, Social Engineering Toolkit, and Set. Okay. So here that we have this social engineering toolkit set up, we have the different options to choose from right here, and this is basically just kind of just follow the directions type thing. Nothing too complicated. So first, let's hit 1. We want to run a social engineering attack. We want to hit 2 here because we want to use a website attack vector, and we want to hit 3 because we want to use a credential harvester attack method. Basically what that's saying is, I think next it's going to ask me probably for an IP address, or either that or a website URL to clone. I'm guessing, because see here it's just saying, it just wants, basically you just want to spoof a website. That's what I think anyway. Okay, yeah, cool. Let's use 2. That's a site cloner. That'll be cool. So what's the IP address for the post back and harvester tab nabbing? I think what that's saying is, it's saying what IP address do you want to use, or what IP address do you want the spoofed website to go to? And we could just look here, we do a little quick if config, and we look up here to etho, which is what we're connected to, and we see its internet address is the same 192.168.1.9, which is what I set it to statically before. So let's use that. And the URL to clone we want to use, let's just go to facebook.com. time machine couldn't back up. Okay, let's go to facebook.com. Cloning this website could take a bit. In the meantime, let me bring you back to, actually, let's go to Google Chrome. Now, like I said before, the virtual network, other than pfSense, has no connection whatsoever to my home address. So the Windows Server 2012 and VirtualBox have no way of contacting this network. So if we go to 192, let's start off with this, 168.1.1, we can see here, instead of going to the pfSense website, which is what happened when we did that on the Windows 2012 server, it actually brings us to this page where it wants login credentials for my ASUS router, and we're not going to do that now. I just wanted to show you that they're obviously not the same. Okay, cool. So we're back here. Let's press enter to continue. And Social Engineering Toolkit, the information will be displayed to you as it arrives. Okay, so now let's go over to our Windows 2012 server. Let's exit this out, and let's go back to Start in Internet Explorer. This time, instead of putting in 192.168.1.1, which we know, let's just look, just to show, this would bring us to the pfSense website. Let's go to 192.168.1.9, which, if you recall, is the website that we set in here in this spoofing attack. This is the IP address that we said we want to be spoofed as Facebook. So let's take a look. It in fact is spoofed as Facebook, and it is not the HTTPS, is HTTP, I think, which is less secure. Okay, so here we're at Facebook login page, and let's give it the information that it's looking for. Let's say it's Joffrey Lannister at kingslanding.gov. Why not? And the password will be I want Robb Stark's head. And you can see here, obviously, it's not really going to go anywhere. It can't. Again, we only decided to clone the home page. So let's take a look back at Backtrack, though, to see. Let's see what it's got. And here it says we got a hit printing the output, possible username found, email Joffrey Lannister at kingslanding.com. Possible password field found, I want Robb Stark's head. Cool. So let's hit Control-C here to finish, and enter, and it'll go back to the main menu. Let's hit clear here, or exit. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. This was really the whole point of setting up, besides the virtual server, was to show you that really, if you have two people on the same network, you can really never be completely secure. As you can see here, with a simple, Backtrack program, it's fairly easy to harvest, web credentials. Again, no one's going to go, or I think it's unlikely that someone would just randomly go to this IP address. But there obviously are different ways that, I can spoof this IP address also. I could do a reverse DNS, which would turn this IP address into a domain name. So instead of seeing this here, they could type in facebook.com, and in fact, it would go to what they thought was Facebook, and it would do the same thing that we just did before. Okay, so some other things quickly, if you guys want to try this yourself. The programs that I used were VirtualBox, pfSense, Backtrack 5, and Windows 2012 server. All open source, all free. Another way that you could protect actually your pfSense server, your pfSense router, would be to install a program called Snort. Snort is sort of like, I don't know if you guys have ever used Wireshark or Etherape, I think, is also a packet sniffer, but basically it's just a router packet sniffer, and you install this Snort program directly to your router, and it sort of, I guess it just collects packets as they flow through it, and you can see who has been monitoring your network. Again, that's more of an intrusion detection system. Another thing you could have done was set up a DMZ. Let's just go back here quickly. Admin pfSense. Oops. Cool. We could have went, system, interfaces, WAN, firewall, services, VPN, status, diagnostics. There's a lot of different things we could have done here that probably would have helped with what we were trying to do, and that would be, to secure the network more. We could have actually set up, or where is it? I'm not sure where it is here, but we could have set up a DMZ, and basically what that is I think it stands for demilitarized zone, but I guess in the computer sense, it's basically where you expose, I think, one computer to, I guess, more of the Wild West network, just the open network, and that computer acts as a gateway and a firewall to the computers on your internal network. So everything would have to pass through this first. So that's just one thing we could do. Again, there actually are some, which is important also, I forgot to mention, a disaster recovery plan. I think it's actually built into pfSense. I think it caches the websites that you view, and I think it saves these settings. So if all was to fail and this was to go down upon reboot, I think these settings would come right back. So I should say that the DNS server that I use Google's open source free DNS, which is just 8.8.8.8. You could use really whatever you want, though. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please message me or even email me, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Alright, thanks, and good luck setting this up.